Hi, I'd like to welcome everybody to the CCW Safe podcast. I'm Rob High out in Oklahoma City with my co-host Phil Naman in California, and we'd like to welcome everybody back. And how's your week been, Phil?
It's been busy. Very busy. It's funny you say that. I got back from Wyoming on an elk hunt. We had a great hunt up there. My buddy got his nice bull. I got a cow. Came right back from that. Left for San Diego for my daughter's wedding. Came back from that Monday evening, and now we're here this week. So yeah, catching up at work and everything else that's going on. It was a very busy week for me. How about you?
Man, congratulations on surviving a daughter's wedding. I have one of those, so I understand.
Right.
I got very fortunate. I've got a great son-in-law out of the deal. So
Now, I'm hoping that that's the case. I always say I reserve the right to change my mind at any time.
I get that. I get that. Yeah, they are always our babies. So, what's been going on other than that? You seen anything in the 2A world that?
Oh, well, you know, California's on fire. So we're going to be fighting everything out here tooth and nail because Gavin Newsom is just going to sign everything that they bring up. And the progressives have a super majority, not just a majority, a super majority in the House out here in California. So they're going to continue to go crazy. Hopefully we'll be able to get some things overturned at the Supreme Court. I know that we had some cases. I think New York had a case that ended up being pretty good out of the Supreme Court, if you want to comment on that. But we're fighting in California. We are fighting for our Second Amendment rights. And those of you in other states need to realize that you need to be involved. We have in California, the California Rifle and Pistol Association. They're doing great work. I'm sure you have associations like that in different states across the country that are local and can work with your governments. And so it's important because the Second Amendment is under attack on all fronts. All fronts meaning everything from the education system, what they're teaching in school, that, the Second Amendment is a deer hunting thing, and who likes to hunt deer? Nobody, because everybody loves Bambi. From that aspect, through the culture war, through what's happening with our federal government. So we're under attack in all things. And the best thing to do is to be proactive and to make sure that you are defending your rights in every opportunity that you have.
I agree with you, Phil.
Then you're correct.
That silent majority thing. We don't have the luxury of being silent anymore. We've had states in the country where CCW Safe is not allowed to operate anymore, and so many of those people, I understand their frustration. I understand their fears. And they're calling us and they're venting and, why aren't we doing more? And we fought a long, hard battle up there legally and didn't come out on the upper end of that.
Was this New York?
That was Washington State.
Washington State. Okay.
Yes, sir. And it's one of those that it takes a grassroots effort. I mean, you've got to be vocal and plugged in and taking part where you live. These are things that are like you said are under attack. They make people fearful, and they should. The Constitution itself is kind of under a daily attack now. You've got people with very socialist leanings, and that's the direction they want to go. And I'd encourage them to. I just encourage them to do it in a socialist country and get out of this one. But
yeah, there's plenty of destroyed countries around that can just swoop right into. I mean, Venezuela is still taking applications, right? You can head down to Venezuela, you can go to Cuba, you can do whatever you want now. Just leave, take you and your ideology with you. But the thing with the Second Amendment, the thing with all of our rights, I mean, Benjamin Franklin said this. He was asked after they'd formed the new country, and documents what kind of a government is this. He was asked by a lady, he says, "It's a republic, dear lady, if you can keep it." And that involves us staying involved in all things. Now, the Second Amendment crowd, I've been involved in this with my radio show in California for 9 years, and individually beyond that. So we form circular firing squads. You mentioned that people are saying, why didn't you do this? Why didn't you do that? We do that all the time. The Second Amendment community, their number one thing that they do, they form a circular firing squad, and they attack whoever's trying to help. And really what we need to do is come along each other. And in the hunting community, in the shooting community, in the CCW community, we need to realize that these are our rights. We need to defend them on all fronts. And that maybe you don't want to own an AR-15, or maybe you don't want to run a box-fed magazine shotgun, but you have the right to do so. And if you sit aside while somebody writes a law excluding those, it's only going to be a matter of time before all of a sudden your semi-automatic pistol is outlawed, or now you're down to only 3 rounds in a magazine. I think New York has a 7-round magazine capacity limit, right? It was standard capacity to 10, now to 7. Well, what direction is that going? So we need to fight these in all fronts, and to find a good organization that you trust, that you get involved with, I think is a great way to do that, but not to be asleep at the switch. How many gun owners are there in America, right? How many hundreds of millions of people actually own firearms, and they need to defend their right to own firearms through their activities. And I'm talking about peacefully voting and supporting the right people that are going to support your rights.
Yeah, I agree. You were talking about the different facets and different little pockets of support, whether it be the hunters or merely self-defense or collectors or competitors or whatever. But that kind of feeds into the direction we were going with today's podcast, related to training. And it's so funny to me. I've been a firearms instructor for a quarter century. I've trained hundreds and hundreds of kids. And I say kids. I was a
21-year-olds. Yeah, I understand.
Yeah, I was a firearms instructor for the largest police agency in Oklahoma. So I was very fortunate. I got to train a whole lot of kids, and from guys that are coming out of the Marine Corps. And the Marine Corps still, in my opinion, is the best group of people teaching guys how to press a trigger properly. Those guys know how to shoot. Down to kids that had never ever even handled a firearm. They'd never been around one, and you can tell the first time they touch it, they're fearful of the object itself. So to bring somebody up to be not just functional with it, but to be proficient with it and utilize it as a tool, as part of their job. But it's so funny to me because I'm just now into the concealed carry world, as just a retired citizen. It's so funny to me to watch the different kind of little pokes at each other. And I get there's guys out there that are these grandiose self-promoters and, my way is the only way. And I figured out the proper way to do these things and everybody else is wrong. I can tell you there's some of the best instruction I've seen in all my days with a firearm has been in the last year in the civilian realm. But it's not just an NRA thing or, there's so many different places that you can start, so many different things you can do. So kind of what I want to go into is the kind of the differences and the kind of things that you can pick up, whether it be a competitive shooter or law enforcement or military or just a guy that went and got his concealed carry permit, and he developed a love for the sport of shooting, and took his role as a concealed carrier very seriously and developed a good skill set and started branching out and instructing others. It's just one of those things. I want folks to know that it doesn't matter who we're talking about. There's things that we can pick up from every one of these little facets, or even if you go into hunting
and there's some of them that you can pick up things that you want to make sure you never do. So there's,
it's funny that you say that. I looked at things like that in all the different instructor courses I've gone through for years. I was a defensive tactics instructor for the police department. And I went to training all over the United States. And there was times that's what I would come back with is, yeah, I learned that we're never going to do that. I
so you see him on this one clip was going around. I think it was actually maybe Israeli or Eastern European, but these guys were doing disarming with real firearms, right?
Yes.
They were practicing, they're pointing at each other, and it's like, well, you might as well just be on the set of Rust and see how that works out. Maybe we should talk about that, because here's a situation, folks. If you've been living under a rock and haven't realized that Alec Baldwin was involved in a fatality, a fatal shooting, a homicide of an individual and the injuring of another person, well, supposedly on a movie set, supposedly with a gun that can't do this. Well, it did this, and that speaks 100%. And I'm sorry, but 100% responsibility is on Alec Baldwin on that. The gun could not have done what it did unless he was aiming it at somebody, which he shouldn't have been doing, and unless he pulled the trigger. All of us have firearms in a safe place in the house or in a safe or wherever it happens to be that are fully loaded sitting there. Very seldom do they get up, walk around, and shoot somebody in the kneecap, right? It takes a human interaction with the firearm. And when we have firearms, we have firearm rules for safety. And, what is there? Depending on who you are, there's between 4 and 7. Some guys break them down into smaller pieces just so you remember more, and the class takes longer, so that justifies their value, the charge. But one of them in everybody's list of firearm laws is that you never point a firearm at something you don't want to kill, hit, maim, destroy, or pay for. You just never do that. So that, had he simply followed that rule and the gun went off, there might be a hole in the ceiling, a hole in the floor, but that's not what happened. Second thing is, you never put your finger on the trigger till you've decided to shoot. If he's aiming this firearm at another person, which he had to have been, or I don't know if it was unconscious, it went like this, I don't know, but his finger was on the trigger for the gun to go off. It wasn't a malfunction of the firearm. Those are just 2 of the basic rules that were violated. And sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes if you break one rule and you don't break another, it's an accident, a negligent discharge, but nobody gets hurt. It's when you break 2 rules or more, you have some serious issues. And so, if he had the finger on the trigger before he decided to shoot, but he didn't shoot, that's one thing. If it was aimed in a safe direction and he fired, he's got a negligent discharge, but he didn't hurt anybody. It's when multiple rules get crossed that unfortunately people get severely injured or lose their life. And as a firearm owner, and you as an NRA instructor and as a combat instructor as you are, we preach this, that you cannot get the bullet back. It has no mind of its own. Once it is sent on its mission, it does whatever you sent it to do. You are responsible for that projectile from the time it leaves the barrel till it stops its motion. Whatever it does, you did it. It's your representative on earth. So it's doing whatever you've told it to do, and only you. And unfortunately for Mr. Baldwin, it's a homicide. Somebody's lost, forget, unfortunately for Mr. Baldwin, because he's not exactly my favorite person. Unfortunately for the person he killed, that's where we're at. I don't remember her name. She's a cinematographer, and I don't mean to belittle her, but I just don't remember her name. But, he pulled the trigger. He was in control of the firearm. But he might say it was an accident. I unconsciously did this. Hey, I am sure that when you go to a studio set with firearms, that they are very, very, I know, like there's Terran Tactical and those guys that do all these training for these people, they drill those signs into this is just safety. Yes, it's a blank. People have been killed with blanks. Another actor in the 80s, some young guy, had a 44 Magnum with blanks in it. Goes, isn't this funny? Well, he died. The discharge is a serious thing. So safety first. And, unfortunately, it appears, I don't want to see a lawyer on my doorstep. It appears that Mr. Baldwin has broken one or two very serious safety rules. And that's why we're in this situation in the news.
I agree.
Then again, you're correct.
It's an absolute tragedy. And there were failures at every level. I mean, there never should have been a live round available.
I don't know. Why would you have live rounds in a simulation?
You could never explain that to me to my satisfaction.
I mean, if you wanted to show like bullets on the table or something like that, or they wanted to look in their belts or whatever, don't know the show, but for Western look, I mean, you simply could have an inert round, like a primer with no powder. I mean, you can make those. I can't think of a reason for a wax bullet to be on stage. We use those for quick draw, but they're not going to be shooting at each other for that. So it would either be a blank or a complete inert dummy round. I can't think of any other reason to have any other thing on the set. So whoever brought live ammunition in, again, that's another safety failure.
Well, they pay people to check these things. I mean, there's somebody supposed to be there that's qualified, that's done all the pre-checks and everything else. Like you were saying, you never pointed at something that you're not okay with destroying. And if I'm not okay with destroying it, it never gets pressed in that direction. I was at a medical training course for range response for accidents that could happen on a firing range. But they're also,
do they call that plug and play?
No, they didn't. But they can, it's something that as a concealed carrier is the likelihood that I'm going to have to shoot greater than the likelihood that I'm going to come across something that I might be able to render some aid to somebody. The fact that I would be present and ready to go during an active shooter kind of incident is incredibly rare. The fact that I could be driving home from the office at the end of the day today and come across a significant motor vehicle accident that somebody needs a tourniquet applied to or something like that. Yeah, that's an absolute possibility. But it was funny because, these are gun related courses. And all the stuff that we did, firearms related, we did with training weapons, with plastic blue guns. That's what we used. And even at that, the level of professionalism in that room, as we're going through and doing our scenarios and actually working through problems, blue guns were never pointed at a person.
Yeah.
I know it's plastic. I know it's fake, but our rules of firearm safety are still in place and we utilize them all the time.
And as you're moving, you're deflecting it down, you're going behind, you're not lasering the guy. Nobody in the class wants to be the guy called the Rainbird sprinkler.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes.
No, we don't want to be that guy. So, Everything you do, it's training, right? And when you are involved in a situation, you fall back to your lowest level of training or your highest level of training, a level of training. And one of those is, why would I be playing around with a gun willy-nilly when I need to actually be controlling that muzzle, making sure if we're stacked, if we're in a line or whatever it happens to be, my gun is not in the spinal column of the person in front of me. And the guy behind me is not doing that to me, right? So you're going to have to be absolutely reticent aware, especially when you're running simulations. You know, at the church I go to, we did a simulation for active shooter, and I ended up being on the entry team just because of the location that they spontaneously did this. Was the guys are coming in, right? I had a corner to hold, but a guy comes in front of me. So, you know, the natural move is you break your line if you have somebody crossing in front of you. You don't stay in front because anyway, but that comes with training. It's not a natural thing. And especially under duress, under a time scenario or a live round scenario, you know, you have to have that built into your response. Anything less than that, you're going to end up with an issue. So at your training, just like you said, you're dealing with blue guns, but still nobody's lasering anybody, right? And I'm sure if you did a video scan of the people, they had the finger off the trigger while they were doing what they were doing. When they wanted to manipulate to shoot, once they've decided to shoot, the finger's on the trigger, but not until then. And those are just good habits. Well, they're not good habits. Those are the level of competence you need to be. It's not a good habit. It's the level of competence you need to decide that you are going to perform on a daily basis. Nothing less.
Yeah, I agree. How are we doing on time? We ready for a break?
Hey, it's coffee time.
It's always coffee time here. We'll have you back here in just a couple of minutes. Welcome back to the CCW Safe podcast. I'm Rob High, here with Phil Naman again. Again, we were talking about training issues today, and some of the things we've been through ourselves, some of the things we've seen, and my personal feelings is I don't care who you're getting your training from. Learn from everybody, and the fact that, you know, Phil comes to me and I give him some drills and they're not really comfortable today. Well, you were never really comfortable the first time you were online learning anything firearms related. So, you know, I don't ever want people to just walk away and go, yeah, I hated that. It didn't work for me. You know, you got to give it a little opportunity to work. But
you have to start somewhere.
But you have to start somewhere.
You know, the NRA has a basic pistol course, right? And I became an instructor for that, but I took it down in time because honestly, 8 hours for that one day killed me. So I went down to about a 4-hour course, but it's not a certified course. But it was about an hour of classroom instruction. And this was basically set up for people who have never fired a firearm before. And, you know, a lot of my personal clients and so forth, you know, a lot of elderly ladies, and I shouldn't say elderly, but over 60. And a very unique thing I found in teaching those groups is hand strength.
Yes.
They can't rack a slide. They can't, you know, a 4.5 pound gun, like, oh, that's so heavy. I'm like, really? But that's where they're at. So you have to understand these things. And in the classroom, it was going over what to expect when the firearm happens. So here's our grip. Here's how we stand. Here's what goes on. Here's how you lean into the gun so the recoil doesn't push you backwards and all these things. And when we got on to the course of fire, which I started them with a Ruger Mark I bull barrel in 22 on a 3-yard target, you know, when they get all ready and the gun goes off, they go, that's it. You know, so everything is brought down. So that particular course was meant for somebody who has never fired a firearm before, has a great deal of apprehension about shooting a firearm, and just get them to the level of competency where they can manipulate their handgun and put it on the bullseye. You know, box to bullseye is a thing. You buy it, it's in a box. Let's get you shooting on the bullseye. But that's not a self-defense course. That is a course just to get them to the level where they're competent. So now they can go to Rob High out there in Oklahoma and learn, okay, here's more of an active shooting scenario. Not active shooter, but an active shooting on the course. We're shooting two targets here, 3 over here, holstering, unholstering, magazine manipulation. You know, so there's different levels of training. And, you know, if you've shot a lot, it might help you. If you've shot a lot and you're a guy and you're consistently changing your sights because you're always shooting low to the left, is a really good chance you should probably just get a little bit of instruction, and it can help you a lot. So even if you have shot a lot but haven't had proper instruction, it's always good to get your bad habits ironed out.
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly. You know, growing up, I grew up in Oklahoma. I mean, I had the ability to hunt my whole life and fish and be involved in the outdoors. My granddad and my uncles and my dad were all very active sportsmen. So I started shooting a shotgun when I was 7. You know, my papa taught me how to shoot then, taught me all kinds of things about, you know, proper carry and how to care for the firearm and safety rules, and then teaching me about, you know, being in the field or being in the woods and things like that. But I'd never had any experience with a handgun. And so when I went through the police academy, it was a brand new, you know, yeah, there's a trigger and there's sights and I understand what's supposed to be done, but I'm pretty salty with a shotgun. I couldn't figure out how to make this little bitty thing in my hands work to the same degree of proficiency.
Well, and maybe you just should have got out of the car at every call carrying the shotgun.
Well, if I knew it required a gun, I absolutely carried a shotgun, because a pistol is what you fight your way back to a real gun with.
Yeah, I've heard that so many times, is that the pistol is to fight your way to your rifle. Yeah.
Yes. But it was, you know, I've seen amazing instructors in the law enforcement circles. I've seen some that were absolutely horrible. I wasn't blessed with a really good instructor going through. I barely qualified as a rookie police officer. I mean, I was Mr. Minimum Standard. And that was doing the very best I could. But I was very, very fortunate. There was a guy that lived next door to my dad that was on the department, but he was a Marine Corps instructor. He shot on the Marine Corps pistol team, retired from there, came to work for the city, shot on air pistol team. And I just remember I was so uncomfortable with how not proficient I was. I was not comfortable with my skill level. And I saw him in his backyard one day, and I hopped the fence and I just went over and visited. And I said, "Hey, I know you go to the range all the time, and I'd really appreciate it. I don't want to interfere with what you're doing or anything, but if you could just give me a couple of pointers." Now,
when you started, were you running on a revolver?
No, I was, we were issued Glock 17, 9 millimeter.
Oh, wow. Okay. See, I'm old enough to be in the revolver class.
Well, I'm old enough to have been. I just wasn't a police officer at that time. It was one of those that I just remember, because I had no earthly idea what kind of work it took this man to get to the level that he was at. Now he's a high master class competition shooter. He is really special. All I knew is he was really good. And he asked me, "Well, how good do you want to be?" And I, very naively, I said, I want to shoot like you shoot. And he just started laughing. And he said, "Well, my part's the easy part. Your part's the hard part. And I was like, well, whatever you want, whatever you can tell me. And he goes, well, I shoot Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays at 0800. And I said, on your days off? And he goes, no, I shoot every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 0800. And so I just started going out with him, and he told me things every single time I go out. And it was so elementary that it started with, like you're talking about, your stance. And I'd have to take a piece of chalk and outline my feet, so I stood exactly the same every time. And then he built it into my grip and into, my presentation and coming out of the holster, and to the point where he had me where I could stand there in my spot, close my eyes, target 7 or 15 yards ahead of me, and he'd say, close your eyes, draw. And he worked on those little pieces so hard with me that my eyes are closed. I come out, I get on target, and he'd say, open your eyes, where's your sights? And we just drilled that so frequently that I was on target. Mm-hmm. And then learning how to operate a trigger and properly reset, and your follow through and getting ready, prepared for the next shot. But I worked months and months and months and months like that. And I went from barely shooting a passing score to almost shooting a perfect score. And he just started laughing and said, now we'll get rid of these beginner targets and you'll start shooting on a real target. And he just kept dialing me in until I eventually made the pistol team. So, but there is a lot of work that goes into it. It's not just standing on line and wasting ammunition and shooting it in a safe direction. There was a lot of meaning to everything that he did as far as my training. And so I stole a lot of those things from him. His name's Jim Wheatley, great guy, amazing shooter, sniper on the TAC team. He's amazing with a firearm. And I was just really blessed to get to sit under him and learn some of that stuff. But I've seen these guys out here for the last year in the civilian realm that are absolutely as good. And so you get guys going back and forth. Well, cops do this or cops do that. And I can tell you right now, a lot of cops are not good shots, but some of the best shots I've ever seen.
You didn't have to tell me that.
Some of the best ones I've ever seen are cops.
Yeah, that's true.
And
it's like everybody else. There's a broad spectrum. The guys who like it are going to gravitate towards that. The guys who really just want a pension and never want to shoot, they're on the other side of the thing. The other thing is, today practicing is an expensive deal. Not only if you're going to hire somebody for a course, there's the travel, the classes for that, but also the amount of ammunition that you need to go through to be proficient. So I'm going to admit to something here. Two things. Number one, I bought what's called a dry fire magazine. It's called dryfiremag.com, I think is their website. It fits Glocks, 17s and 21s. I don't know if they have anything else, but that's what I have mine for. It's a magazine you can insert into your regular pistol, unloaded, of course, or cock the slide, and it allows you to continually dry fire that as if the gun was going off. So it's great for using your exact gun on a safe range. Obviously, as we talked about earlier, do things correctly. But you can dry fire all the time with that pistol, and you don't have to keep resetting click. It's just bang, bang, as if the gun was going off. It has the same reset and the same trigger pull. So that's an important thing that I use. The second one, I feel kind of silly saying this, but I bought a Glock 19 and 17 airsoft pistol. It's the same. It's a blowback system. It runs off of gas. And I set up not an IPSC, but a small steel target in my garage. And I practice concealed draws, I think it'd be much happier if I shot my foot with an airsoft pistol than with a live round. And if I shot myself with the airsoft pistol, I'd never admit it. No one would know. A live round, well, there's some evidence. So, you're practicing drawing from concealed. Where are you going to do that? When are you going to do that? How safely can you do that? So I think that that's a good way to go. And then they even have, you can get you can buy one for $120, or you can just get an app on your phone for a shot timer and just stand at the ready, your hands down or whatever. And the shot timer goes off, draw, fire, and check your time. And you can see that, drawing from concealment is a lot slower than drawing from the side on the hip, like in an IPSC match or something like that. So I think for me, it's been fun too, because especially when you start running the timer, you get competitive with yourself, and it's a lot of fun. And then of course you take this target and you angle it, so when the pellets hit it, it bounces down the driveway and you never have to see them again. So you don't have to clean up the floor.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned the shot timer. There's so many things we did in police training that we manufacture stress.
Mm-hmm.
You can watch recruits on day one of the academy, and it's kind of like day one at
well, you did the 1 OT, right? 1 OT. So if they didn't draw and fire under 1 second, they got tased. Wasn't that the way you had that?
That's what I encouraged command to bring in, but they didn't see the use of it.
101. Sorry.
But these guys are coming from just a lot of them are coming straight from college. They've never,
God help us.
They've never really done anything in their life, most of them. And now I'm going to put them into the fire and just go, here you have it.
Yep.
Go solve somebody else's problems. And it's just one of those things that they go into panic mode if you didn't condition them to that. So you just steadily go and go and go and go. Well, I can take you to the firing range, and I can tell you from experience, having a round come your way, there's nothing cool about that. Your perspective on everything in the world changes from that day forward. I've been shot at a couple of times. We can't do that training you on a firing line.
Well, we can do it out here in Southern California. You have a place called Hodge Road off the 15 freeway, halfway to Vegas. Okay.
That's terrible.
It is uncontrolled. And so if you just stand out there, you just hear ricochets going over your head. So you can get used to all of that, right? Just right here in Southern California, just go out there and rounds flying by and say, oh yeah, okay, we're good with that now.
Well, if we do other things that make you function and make you work through problems. So
get you tired, make you do 50 burpees and then draw on fire.
And that changes your life, I promise.
That's like chasing somebody through 3 backyards and over 2 fences.
For sure. But to be, at a 15-yard line, and it's close enough, but it's far enough. It's way farther than most gunfights occur. And all of a sudden I'm going to say, okay, Phil, I need you to fire 12 rounds here. I'm going to give you 12 seconds, but I'm going to have you make 2 mandatory magazine changes. So I need 3 magazines of 4 ready, go. And you're having to work through these issues. And everybody's like, well, that's not really stress. Yeah, it is. If you're trying to make time and you're having to shoot a qualifying score and you've got to get those things off, absolutely.
And then of course, what you didn't tell them was that in your second magazine, halfway through the stack, you put a dummy round. He's got to clear the malfunction and keep going. Yeah.
That could happen. But those are the kinds of things that it's a manufactured stress, but I can tell you from years on the streets, the most important timed event you'll ever be in is a gunfight. Right? I watched the give and take going on in the world now, as far as instructors going about, 1 second draw from concealment and 1 round on paper. That's fast. I'm going to tell you right now, that's fast. And some guys talk about, that it serves no purpose or this, that, and the other. Well, it's another one of those stresses that if that's what you've prepared yourself to, I don't know that I would trust most people to draw and make the determination to put a round down line in less than a second.
Well, I think
Because I have to know that threat is still there. It's still something that needs to be addressed.
I think in that type of a situation, they've made the decision to shoot before they've drawn the firearm. You have to, right? If it's like, holy crud, there's a sawed-off shotgun coming this way, that's that instantaneous. The decision to made was fired before you moved for your firearm.
Yeah, and it is. But yeah, if you don't think that's an important timed event.
Oh, I think it's great. And honestly, I have a little stupid little shot timer on the phone, and, you can hang out there in a garage and just, I think it's $19 for 5,000 pellets. How are you going to practice 5,000 draw and fires for under $25, right? Yeah. You're not. And the little the Glock CO2 gun, maybe I'll bring it on the next podcast we do. It's designed by, or it's licensed by Glock. So it's got the same frame and the same everything, same weight. When the magazine is in it, it's the same weight as a loaded gun. The little gas action has a little blowback. I mean, there's not as much noise, but as far as an action and trigger, it's as close to simulation as you're going to get. And this is about the cheapest way to go, especially when you just can't find ammo. I mean, we're talking about doing a pistol course or a competition in November here, the next couple of weeks. And everybody's like, do I want to shoot 300 rounds?
Yeah.
So it comes down to, can I replace those 300 rounds? How many primers do I have left? So everybody is trying to see what this new world order that we're dealing with is going to lay out. And you don't want to blow through all of your ammunition, but you do need to maintain your practicing, because shooting is a perishable skill.
Absolutely. Again, it's why if you're going to carry, I think you need to test yourself. I don't think you just need to practice. I mean, we can all just stand static online and slow fire and just
after you've learned pistol control, that's useless training to me. You're showing off for somebody. Hey, look how tight a group I can do, but that's not helping you advance to the next level, especially for defensive shooting.
Well, no, and I'm not doing this for competition.
Right.
Now,
I guess you could put your left hand in your pocket and hold your right hand out here for make the 100-yard shot. I guess you could do that.
I know those guys though.
But now, let me jump on that, because I'm not trying to bash the sport. It's different. Bullseye competition is a different than, and this actually messed me up a lot when I first started training defensively, because I'm a long range shooter. I'm a precision shooter. I like small, little, tiny groups. To me, it was more important to put a hole like this all day long in the center of the chest than to shoot quickly anywhere. And that's the difference. I had to really get my mind around that. Like, it's okay to hit over here. Here's the zone for the 9 or the 10 ring. That's where I want to be. And an 8's okay. A 7, what are you talking about? That's a 7, right? But a quick 7 and a quick 8 is better than a slow 10 any day.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's a timed event.
Or a quick 7, 7, 8, 8 is better than one slow 10.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. One slow 10 may get you killed.
That was a hard concept for me because of my like you said, you came from hunting and so forth. And all of a sudden it's like, what do you mean just shoot? What do you mean is good enough? It's a hard thing to change your style.
Well, and even for me, you're going to have a wobble anytime you're shooting, but the one that I experienced with a handgun was so exaggerated. And it was just, I'd had that problem where I wanted to capture that perfect sight picture. And, once I was back there, I'd snap real quick and everything else is wrong with what I'm doing at the same time. My grip is weak. I just didn't understand it.
It works itself out if you go like this, high elbow and then snap the gun at the target and then back up. I think like a big bullwhip. I think that actually works pretty good. And that extra momentum makes the bullet go faster.
Oh, okay.
Is that true?
I'm up for anything. So next time you head out this way, I'd like you to show me that. We're going to head out to another break real quick. Come back and join us. We'll go over a couple of the different training issues we'd like you to focus on, think about, kind of test yourself and improve your skills. So we'll be right back. Welcome back to the CCW Safe podcast. I'm Rob High here with Phil Naman, and we are covering training issues today. Phil, you'd mentioned earlier some of the very basic stuff with like NRA, learning gun safety and basic shooting fundamentals. But as we were talking about in the last segment, you also have, it doesn't prepare me truly for self-defense to stand at the 7-yard line or 15 or 25 or however far you want to shoot and just stand there static, take aim. And as I'm working those basic shooting fundamentals, I'm not concerned with my own personal safety. I'm just making
except if you're in an indoor range and the guy next to you has a ported 44 Magnum, that'll add a little bit of stress to your life. But other than that, you're okay.
I'm not shooting next to that guy. But we were talking about whether it's competitive shooting or military training or law enforcement training or the guys out there in the civilian realm, all of the stuff that's out there. And if you understood how much these things are interwoven and intersect, I've seen law enforcement guys get training from competition guys. I've seen them get training from every single aspect, military guys, whoever. And the guys that are competition shooters, they're amazing at what they do. To watch these guys shoot this USPSA, the IPSC stuff, that guys that are shooting quick and accurately and moving, and you can learn a lot of stuff as far as being efficient in your movements and some of those things. And there's law enforcement and military groups that are bringing some of the best competition shooters in the world in to help fine tune their training.
One advantage that somebody in an IPSC course or a competition course, has when they're shooting and they're shooting quickly and it looks great and it's like, wow, it's fantastic. Well, if you go to the matches, they walk through the stage first. Okay. I don't think there's a police officer out there that gets to walk through a scenario, go back to his car and then run it in real life. So they walk through the scenario first. They know, okay, if I come around this corner, I need to, there's an organization. I have to shoot from the outside in. I have to hit these targets, these targets, these targets. Okay. The white one is a non-combatant. I can't shoot that. I can't shoot the black one. I only shoot the brown ones over here. And so they go through all that. So when they're doing it, it's a shooting function. Where the police officers and the CCW carriers differ in all of this is that you have to make the decision to shoot on each round, on each target in real time. So as you're coming around the corner in let's say an IDPA, International Defensive Pistol Association program where you draw from concealment, it's like a CCW competition. In their course, they mandate that you shoot the outside target to the inside target. Well, if like in the movie Outlaw Josie Wales, he says, well, the guy over there had a flap holster. I wasn't worried about him, but this guy had crazy eyes, right? So in real time, he's making those decisions as opposed to a rule book. And so guys are looking at their times like, oh, and they're great shooters, not taking that away from them. But their decision to made was before they got on the line and loaded their gun is, okay, I know I'm going to shoot this, skip that, load here, skip this, load there, and whatever the program of fire is, they had it in their head and then they executed it. They executed it because their skill level is amazing. Where we run into real life, where real life differs from that scenario is every shot, every scenario has to be decoded in your brain, threat, non-threat. What's the proper response, right? Run, hide, shoot, fight, whatever it is, hands on, pistol on, whatever the tool of the day happens to be. Those decisions have to be made in real time. And those decisions that you have to make in real time are going to be analyzed by everybody afterwards. And so that's the skill set that you really need to look at the situation. And I'm sure that that's one of the major training things you had going on, Rob.
Once you've got those basic shooting fundamentals, I kind of like the competition stuff for kind of helping you evolve up to that next level a little bit. You don't have to be a master class shooter or anything. Go in just as never having competed before. They've got novice areas, but you can see then what I need to work on.
Mm-hmm.
So we've gone from marksmanship stuff to now we're going kind of a hot range live fire kind of thing, and then evolving to, I'm not just walking out here and laying my gun on the table in front of me at the range and okay, I pick it up and I load it and I shoot a course of fire. Now I'm going to use this for my own personal protection, for my family's protection. I've made the choice to become licensed and I'm going to carry responsibly. And so now I got to learn some of this concealment stuff. And as you were saying earlier, drawing from concealment is way different than even having a holster on your hip as a law enforcement officer. We move beyond that and you get into different specialty courses, whether, the big deal now is whether you're, guys that are going out there specifically teaching appendix carry stuff. I like appendix. It's something that's comfortable for me. It's something I've kind of grabbed onto. Something I haven't had.
No pun intended.
Something I haven't had any formal training with it, but I look forward to greatly. Is
I like appendix carry also. Sometimes, if you've got it on your back hip, you're going to be profiling it and you just don't know if somebody saw that movement, and they recognize you have, and they're behind you. I mean, I prefer, especially because most CCW holsters don't have a level 3 retention.
Yeah.
So I like appendix carry because no one's going to put their hand up there.
Yeah.
Nope.
Some of the other stuff you move them into is red dots. But I don't care that, it's perfectly sighted and I can do this. And if everything else about my fundamental stuff is not in place, if I haven't built those basic shooting fundamentals, it doesn't matter that I can put a dot in the middle of something when all of a sudden I do something just heinous with firearm in my hand and it doesn't matter. You were talking earlier about the guy that very routinely is, everything's low at 7 o'clock, low at 7 o'clock, low at 7 o'clock. You might want to get a little bit of training. That's probably a pretty simple fix.
Well, we know something you do not know. Yes.
Yeah, you're shooting something that's such a simple fix right there, easy solution, and it's just a minor correction. And all of a sudden, that tight little group that's missing is all of a sudden just chewing a hole in the middle of it.
The other thing, like you're talking about with the optics, I think that if you pick up a pistol, especially from a draw stroke, so from the holster, if it has an optic on it, and you throw it out there in front of you, and all of a sudden you're like, well, where's the red dot? What is it? What it's showing you is that when you grab the gun, your grip is wrong. Because if your grip is straight and you come up on front, everything's aligned. But that optic, if you're not lined up, if your hand's not right, you're like, and that's not what it's supposed to be for. But I think that, if you're able to use optics, I think they can only enhance your shooting. Excuse me a second. They can only enhance your shooting, but
if your basic fundamentals are in place.
Yeah. And they're going to show you if you're out of line. I mean, it's very clear. The old sight pattern won't tell on you, but the other one certainly will.
Some of the other stuff that goes beyond the expensive portion, we were talking earlier about, how long is it? I've got travel and lodging and meals if I'm going to a training. How much did the course itself cost? The big training we sponsored for Guardian Nation a couple months ago. Everybody showing up to that is intended to arrive with 1,000 to 1,500 rounds each. That's a major investment right now. For those that
if you can find it.
Yeah, that could find ammunition. We were lucky and had a sponsor, ammunition sponsor for the event. So they arrived with everything and people could make a reasonable purchase through them, and not have to worry about flying with all that ammo and stuff like that. So, but the other things that are out there that aren't necessarily what you would maybe look at as being involved in firearms training is other options. If all I'm carrying is a pistol, it's kind of like my only tool is a hammer. Every problem I see is a nail.
Well, they frown on us carrying ice picks. I don't know if you knew that or not. Double-bladed axe under the arm. They don't like that one either. I tried. I tried to put my Eagle double-bladed axe on my CCW. They wouldn't do it. But I had a nice holster fit right here.
I bet you did.
But the good thing about a double-bladed axe is when you take it out of its sheath, there is no more fight. Everybody just leaves. For whatever reason, I don't know. They'll challenge a gun, they'll challenge a knife. You ain't going to shoot me. You pull that axe out, they go, oh, you crazy, I'm gone.
I was going to say, people are afraid of crazy. That'll carry you a long way. But I'm talking about simple combative stuff, force on force stuff. Yep. I don't have to be a collegiate athlete to do all of these things. If I can come up with a couple of skills to add that can buy me 5 or 10 seconds, that's a lifetime in a gunfight. I was talking earlier, we hosted Lone Star Medics over the weekend out at our range for a range response kind of trauma medicine course. Just amazing training. And it's not just a firearms related thing. Like I was saying, we can be on our way home after work today and roll up on a horrible car wreck and be able to render aid. It's things like that. Or, last week we had Andrew Branca and Don West on with us, just as far as understanding self-defense and the law of self-defense and those kind of things, legal training and things like that are just, they're as valuable as any skill set you learn with your firearm. I guarantee it. It's the knowledge of those things that can keep me out of trouble. You get so many different aspects that I just think make you a more competent carrier. It's not just the working of the firearm. It's all the other things that make me a more responsible gun owner. And heaven forbid it was my family that I had to, stop and give emergency medical aid to. But if it happens, I want to have that knowledge. I don't want to be hopeless and helpless and sit there and watch somebody I care about suffer. So what were other things that you've found over the years as a firearms owner that have been beneficial for you?
Training. Well, I think train with the gun you carry.
Mhm.
So I did an IDPA course. Actually, it was a run and gun course with a SIG 365. Tiny little thing, right? Everybody else has got Glock 34s and whatever else, SIG 220s. This is what I'm carrying. So that's the gun I ran with. And it was good. I really enjoyed it. But I probably shot that gun more on that particular day than I had up to that time. You're shooting 200-300 rounds out of it. Another time I had a shoulder surgery on my right arm. So purposely, I went to the same contest, pistol match, with a Glock 19 on a left-handed holster, and I had to shoot unsupported left hand the entire match. Nobody shoots unsupported offhand, weak hand ever, right? And so that was a great eye opener, especially when they had some of the targets at 40, 50 yards and, just getting your squeeze down and anything. Anyway, that was very important because I had to do one arm magazine changes. I had to shoot unsupported. And I think that those unique kind of one-off things will just help you out and to give you more confidence. I pick up that SIG 365 and I know what it's going to do. If I have to shoot left-handed, I know I can shoot left-handed.
Yeah.
I don't want to, but I would.
That we always did disabled drills.
Because the right hand has the axe in it.
Yeah, of course you can't let that go.
I forgot to say, oh yeah, there's the axe and the gun. That's the way it works.
The only thing keeping you safe.
So we're saying.
Yeah, we've had a lot of good stuff here today. I think it's really important.
Well, we got to keep some for next week. Just keep everybody coming back here. We can't give them can't answer all the world's problems in one show. This is a series.
I can't. Just some food for thought going away. There are so many good training companies out there, so many individuals out there that are really, really good. Go online, do a little research.
Get some
references, find out who's legit, find out who's a blowhard and avoid them.
If they show up at the range wearing flip-flops and carrying a bullhorn, go home.
I haven't seen that guy yet. But you want to kind of vet your people, find out who they were from, who they came through, what their training history is. The guys that are really serious about this can give you their pedigree. They can tell you all the stuff they've done and been through, without being vague or kind of hidden. I was a special operator.
Just because they're wearing 511s and have a paracord bracelet doesn't mean they're an operator.
And
just saying,
and not ever will. So it's just one of those. Take your time, ask around, find people that you trust, find people that you respect. There's plenty of guys that I can reach out to and say, hey, have you ever heard of this guy? Is he worth the effort?
Well, a lot of law enforcement, you guys get additional civilian trainers. So maybe ask some of your friends in law enforcement who locally is training you guys that you would recommend.
Yeah, there's good guys all over the place out there, guys and gals. We've got a couple gals here that are real big in Girl with a Gun. Amazing organization, helps the ladies out there. Kind of low key, not a lot of pressure from
from guys or anything like that. And they've got guns that you can try and all
Yep.
kinds of stuff.
Great organization.
Stuff, great
We
organization.
have women on target and those things. Anyway.
Yeah. Anyway, what do you got closing out here, Phil? Anything you want to
Well, I know November 13th, we're going to be at the West End Gun Club. Going to shoot a course of fire out there. It'll be my first time this year I've been able to get out there. So looking forward to that. I just got back, as you know, from Wyoming, had a great elk hunting trip. And we want to go to Wyoming, let me know. God, it's more elk there than you know what to do with. That's it. We're fighting the good fight here in California. We are standing up for everything we can. The California Rifle and Pistol Association has been a great fighter for our rights. So, we're here behind enemy lines from the occupied People's Republic of occupied California. Still here, still fighting for you. So thank you very much. And God bless you for the opportunity to be on the air with you.
You bet. We thank you guys. Join us again next week. See you. Bye.